you've said in your book, right at the start, there is a clear and present danger that the Constitution of India will be replaced by a document that will be inspired by an ideology called Hindutva. Now, when you read this, it sort of burns fear into your heart, right? Because we're all constitutionalists here. But if I can ask you in a combative mood, there has been absolutely no move in the last 5 years to rewrite the Constitution in this fashion. So are you in some sense fear-mongering, sir?
No, I'm not. I'm only relying upon statements made by key persons in the BJP RSS establishment. Read Golwalkar's bunch of thoughts, even the sanitized version. That is very different from our idea of India. This RSS BJP doesn't believe in multiculturalism. They believe in one nation, which I agree, but one culture, one philosophy. Everyone in India is a Hindu, largely one language, one personal code, which they insidiously are spreading, one food habit. You can't eat beef, you can't eat this, you can't eat that. This is anathema to me. This is completely opposed to India's constitution, number one. Number two, they don't believe in reservation. They are living with reservation because that's there in the constitution. But they have done everything or supported everything that dilutes reservation, and we have to fight back to get it back. Reservation and promotion, we have to fight back. Now what have they done? They didn't even send a proper counsel to argue when the Supreme Court ruled that reservation in a university should be department-wise. Have you examined the consequences of that?
But they just extended reservation.
After we fought in Parliament, on day one, the minister refused to give an assurance that if the review petition is dismissed by the Supreme Court, as it was 3 days ago, they will bring an ordinance. He refused to make that statement. We said Parliament will not function then. Next day, on the last day, he grudgingly came and said, if the review petition is dismissed, we will bring an ordinance. He's not brought one so far.
So they expanded reservations.
No, you're wrong there. That is not reservation. That in a sense is the opposite of reservation. Reservation in the Constitution is for socially and educationally backward classes and for the scheduled caste and scheduled tribes. And then what you have done now is carved out of the 50%, you've carved out 10% for the poor of the upper caste. Because the constitutional provision they've introduced says this 10% is for the poor, but the poor will not include scheduled caste poor. It will not include scheduled tribe poor. It will not include OBC poor. Then which poor is it? It's only the upper caste. So don't confuse the 10% with the reservation. Either you believe in reservation or you don't. That's a different matter. You're entitled to say we should not have reservation. We should not have affirmative action. This government, you know what happens in a unit? If a department has got 3 faculty, a professor, a reader, and a lecturer, you know when the scheduled tribe candidate will get a chance? In 100 years he will get it. For 100 years a scheduled tribe candidate will not get a chance. It is mathematically worked out. Therefore, I think this government will, if it has a 2/3 majority and has sufficient numbers in the Rajya Sabha, attempt to change the constitution. Even without changing the constitution, I think this government is a threat to our constitutional values. Our constitutional values are based on institutions. Every institution has been undermined today. They wanted to convert RBI into a board-managed company. 8 vacancies in the CIC were left unfilled until the Supreme Court stepped in and directed them to fill it. They did not have a chief statistician for several months. They did not have a chairman of the Securities Appellate Tribunal for several months. There are 440 vacancies in the high courts. There are vice chancellors' posts which are vacant. I've given all that in the book. The point is, you destroy CBI. Have you ever come across such a situation in any country? Number 1 in CBI files cases against number 2. Number 2 in CBI files cases against number 1. And the Delhi police and CRPF are mobilized at midnight to take over the CBI office. I mean, what kind of a If it was not so tragic, we would all laugh, but it's not a laughing matter. It's tragic. It's tragic. Now, I think institution after institution has been undermined or taken over. And you know something? Profiling for appointments. Have you ever heard of it in a Congress government? We may have made some wrong appointments. We never profiled anybody. This is a government which profiles. Why was Justice K.M. Joseph not appointed for months? And why are judges being appointed today in 24 hours after the collegium recommendation? I have nothing against the judges who have been appointed in 24 hours. I think they are good men. But why was Justice K.M. Joseph not appointed for several months? Because he gave a judgment in the Uttarakhand case? I think there is a grave danger that constitution will be undermined directly and indirectly. That's one problem. The second is, everybody in India is living in fear. I was at a wedding reception yesterday. Several businessmen walked up to me and spoke to me. And all that they said is, we dare not open our mouth. You saw Ruchir Sharma's interview. He said, statism, the proof of statism is when businessmen don't speak against the government. On the same day when President Trump was sworn in, on the same day, January 20, 2017, there was another businessman who had called a conclave of over 200 businessmen on the same day and said, we resolve that Trump will be defeated after 4 years. On the day he was sworn in. Not one businessman is willing to speak up. CII, I think they've got pre-prepared statements. Whatever happens, that statement will come out. I mean, we are living in fear. Dalits are in fear. Muslims in North India, Dalit communities with numerically small Dalit communities are migrating to villages where they are numerically larger. Not majority, but numerically larger, a critical number. Similarly, Muslim communities are migrating. Dalits are living in fear, Muslims are living in fear. Women, when we went around consulting for the manifesto, women said, number one, when I had one in Bandra bandstand, the number one demand of women was women's security. Secure women. Women, children. I mean, everybody's living in fear. Journalists, scholars, academics, writers, everyone is living in fear today. Businessmen are living in fear. I think there is a grave danger that our idea of India will be imperiled if the BJP comes back to power.